Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers, if you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money, so we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now, on with the show.
You are now booted up and online. We are now in control of your primary operating system. You have chosen the AutoExec.Bat podcast. This show is a fan tribute to AMC's Halt and Catch Fire TV show. Not listening is an illegal operation and will result in a program process error.
Shall we play a game?
And we are on our fan podcast for Halt and Catch Fire, AutoExec.Bat. Today we are going to be reviewing Season 2, Episode 2, called New Coke. And on the podcast, we've got Matt.
I shot first.
Oh, perfect way to do an intro there for this episode. And then Jesse.
Yes, so you're Han Solo of the podcast.
Well, I'm sure it was a reference there, other than
absolutely, yes,
the tank, right?
Right,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So jumping right in, I feel like I'm going to bash this episode probably a lot more.
Wow.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan.
Wow, let's get controversial right from the start.
There wasn't real. I mean, I saw some progression with, the way that they're going to move along with the season, which I could see.
Okay.
But there's a lot of little nuances that were bugging me as I was watching the episode. One of them that was just blaringly in my face that really kind of bugged me was we have a company like Mutiny that is having financial difficulties. Yet anybody and their cousin they can hire. So all of a sudden they're hiring Bosworth. All of a sudden they're hiring this hacker guy. So I mean, where's the money coming from to pay everybody's paychecks?
Now, to be fair, they addressed that. Donna talked about that, right? So that's kind of the hand wave there that's saying, they're addressing it. I guess they're not totally out of funds. They just know that if they continue to spend at the pace they are currently doing, they are going to run out of funds, and they're going to fold under their own success.
Yeah, but don't you see? I mean, they're stealing electricity from the neighbors. They're buying equipment from Joe Schmo out of his van. I mean, I just don't see how they can do those other activities and then all of a sudden get into a hiring spree.
So Matt, do you want to weigh in?
Well, I don't think it wasn't necessarily a hiring spree per se. They only technically hired 2 people, and one I'm not even sure he's getting paid or not. But yeah, I see Jesse's point, or Dave's point. Jesse.
Yeah.
We're interchangeable.
Yes, indeed. Well, first off, the new guy, they haven't paid him any money yet.
They offered him $20,000.
Right.
We're talking about the hacker.
But
right.
But it isn't. They haven't paid him up front. I mean, so, and that fits Cameron's very, very much worry. Her style, because she just doesn't worry about, practicality. She's just like, this guy's really good and I think we need him, so we're going to do this. So that's, part of the reason. And I'm sure John isn't getting paid that much. But I too agree with you. I mean, they are in bad shape. And I thought you were going to go with, anyone in their neighbor would think, hey, Gordon's got all this cash. He's looking for something to do. Hello, why aren't they doing this together, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that could be Donna not wanting to muddy the waters, and complicating, what could be like this her, her ability to shine,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden she's kind of taking it back door to Gordon because he's there, and the person that's giving the money, and
Yeah.
not, essentially the boss at that point.
Yeah. Um,
But that was just one of the points that were kind of bugging me.
Okay.
But I mean, was
So,
there? I mean, it sounds like you were surprised by me not being a fan of the episode, so you probably went the other way with it then.
yeah, I was pretty happy with it. If we, we've come up with our own kind of rating system that we'll cover again at the end of the episode. But, on most of my other podcasts, we do a scale 1 to 10, and we pick some random, generic item from the podcast, and the whole purpose is to try to make the other host giggle. So, like, I would have given this 8.5 waffle irons. Okay, see, successful.
Yeah,
See,
success.
That's the whole purpose of picking up this random thing, is to make them laugh, to make your co-host laugh. So I was pretty happy with the episode. I actually watched it twice. I watched it once and didn't take any notes. I just kind of watched it, and I said, "Oh, that's going to be a okay episode to talk about." And then I had some extra time. Blatant plug of real life. My wife is training for her first full Ironman, and so I have a lot of time alone because she's out training, and I'm doing Sherpa duties at home. So she was out training tonight, so I had time enough to watch the episode again and took some notes. And I think we're really setting the chess pieces in place. And if you want to complain about that, I think it's a fair complaint. But I was happy enough with the scenes and what's going on and the setup that I thought it was a pretty solid episode, like I said.
So what do you think, Matt?
So, Matt, you're the tiebreaker.
The tiebreaker. I thought it was honestly, it was a safe episode overall, because Jesse's right. It is moving all the chess pieces in place. We see Joe, or not Joe. Is it Joe? I should take notes. I don't take notes.
I end up throwing up IMDb up and then going, the jackass character. Yes, I assume you're talking about Joe working for Sarah's father.
Yes, Joe
Yes.
working for Sarah's father, because Sarah has all the money, and the way Mutiny's burning through cash, we know Joe is going to somehow sweep in and be the savior somehow later in the season, I bet. That's the way I'm looking at it.
See, and now around the same timeline, or not same timeline, but around the same thought process, watching Joe with season 1, I ended up, having such a distrust for this guy because I don't know what he's going to do next, which I think plays well for the character and it plays well for the show, because you've got this loose cannon. But now when I'm watching him and I see him trying to look like he's being a legitimate data entry, going along for the ride kind of guy, I'm thinking to myself, are there ulterior motives? Is he trying to be the strategist that he is and try to... He's looking ahead. Like, did he target Sarah to,
I totally believe he targeted Sarah.
Wow.
See, that's what I'm getting.
Matt. See, this is why. So we're going to pause for a moment and pull back the curtains. So Dave and Matt were nice enough to ask me on for the podcast, and we've had a lot of fun. But by far, I am the optimist of the group. I can tell already. I am the Pollyanna. We had to wait till tonight to record because I was on a Game of Thrones podcast yesterday, and after that episode, I was, needing rainbows and sunshine, put into my IV because it was such a depressing episode. So, I mean, I really hate Joe, but I think he loves Sarah, and I think he truly is trying to redeem himself in front of her father.
Well, I mean, after everything that he's done in the past, I mean, I want to like him.
Yeah.
I want to be, I want to go, yay, Joe, he's got feelings now. He's involved with Sarah, and it's a great relationship for him. He's going to be stable now. I want to say that stuff, but I can't.
There's a point in the episode where they're sitting around, Tim and Sarah sitting around the campfire. I don't know what the heck that thing is. that park setting.
Yeah, like the when they were in Austin, it was kind of like a fire ring or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They're having a conversation, and the entire conversation, I'm watching both of them kind of looking for the right thing to say to edge up the other one. And I'm wondering if Joe's playing Sarah and Sarah's playing Joe at the same time.
And I do think this is really, my nature. Once again, and you will see, I am the master of digression and storytelling. But, when I, several years ago, when I'm watching Dr. Horrible sing-along blog, I'm like, oh, look, Dr. Horrible is going to, turn a new leaf, and he's going to fall in love, and they're going to get married, and this is going to be wonderful that she's changed his life. I'm like, foolish Jesse. It's a Joss Whedon show. Of course that isn't going to happen. So I guess I'm, the same thing. I truly think after all that's happened to Joe, he still thinks he's smarter than most people. He still thinks he can get ahead of the technology, but I think he honestly cares about Sarah and is trying to be worthy of her. Now, I grew up on Walt Disney movies, so I have very much that, I'm going to get my heart kicked by the end of the season, perhaps, but that's what I'm thinking right now.
I would think that too, except they open the season with a flashback of him and Cameron together. Once you open the season with him and Cameron, and then they finish the same episode with him logging on to Mutiny, it's pretty much a foreshadowing to what's going to happen.
You think he's still in love with Cameron?
Yeah, he's still in love with Cameron.
I don't think it's one of those things that he's open to just admitting to himself, but he's obviously got something for her, that's keeping him connected to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Matt, you talked about making notes, and so I have a question for both you and Dave. When I watched it the first time, I did not catch the significance of the waffle iron. I knew it had to be something with the earlier conversation, but I didn't catch it. So when I rewatched the episode, I'm like, well, duh, Jesse. I mean, her dad, which, by the way, great character actor. I hope we see him more. Just absolutely wonderful to see him in this role, right?
Oh, James Cromwell?
Yeah, James Cromwell, yeah. But, to say, I don't think you could get a job selling, waffle irons.
Yeah.
And so I did not catch that. So did you guys remember that when you were watching it either the first time, or did you have to rewatch it to catch it?
No, I caught it the first time.
Good for you. Yeah.
You just connected the dots for me, right, as you talked.
Okay. Yeah.
Because in all honesty, when I watched the episode, I knew that he gave him a gift, but I didn't catch what it was. Mm-hmm. And then, like, to come back and go, you explain what was going on, then I was like, oh, okay, that's what that was. All right.
Yeah. So. Because Sarah's dad, and I guess we'll learn his name sooner or later, he talked about wanting to eat the world for breakfast, kind of didn't do well in his first job, right? He learned it was always better to be the guy than be the guy who reports to the guy.
Right.
And then he says to Joe, with your background and with your references, I think you'd have a tough time getting a job selling waffle irons.
Yep.
So, and I did think it was really nice that, Sarah told him, look, I'm going to talk to my dad. You shouldn't be this humiliated. And I think this shows a little bit of a blend of the old Joe plus the new. Is he's like, no. I think this is a test, and I need to see that I can prove myself. And and then that's why thank you for the opportunity, which I think was pretty slick.
Yeah, the character is Jacob Wheeler, by the way.
Yeah, and I think it fits both our theories, right? If Joe truly is trying to redeem himself, he would want to do this, and if he's manipulating Sarah or using Sarah to get ahead, he'd be doing the same kind of behavior. So I think this plays both ways depending on how you're watching the show.
Yeah, he's got to he's got to get himself into a position of trust. And so he's going to play nice for the moment.
Absolutely. So what did we think of Gordon's storyline? Him going to the doctor, confessing his coke use, which I assume is part of the reason why we have the new coke title. I also, thanks to the joy of Wikipedia, New Coke came out in 1985, so it has a double meaning. Him being bored, using Coke again. What do you guys think of that?
Honestly, it was a little heavy-handed to me, but
Okay.
it seemed like they ran out of stuff to do with Gordon, so they manufactured this addiction, which I thought was poorly chosen, to be honest.
Okay.
But it's a little heavy-handed because it's just showing that this is the 80s. Everybody was doing Coke.
Okay.
I could do without it. I thought having him bored, digging into mutiny more would have been better dramatic to me than having him addicted to cocaine.
All right, Dave, how about you?
See, and now I'm on the opposite side on this one because that's actually the subplot that I like the best out of this episode. Not necessarily the cocaine use, but the where I'm just bored and he's struggling to find his niche, again in the world and trying to find what he's going to do next. And, typical of the 80s programmers and those people that are just playing with hardware all night, they get that little something to keep them going throughout the night. Not that I would know, but I'm just assuming that's what happened back then. And so, him getting all the hardware toys and then, suddenly finding that little nugget of what's wrong with the tank game. I love that part, and then, playing into the cocaine use and him suddenly trying to pawn off his kids with the whole stranger danger thing. That was just awesome.
Yeah, but we've seen it before in all those stupid after-school specials.
So I leaned more toward Dave this time, and here's the reason why. I missed that his cocaine. I heard him telling the doctor about it, but I didn't catch that when him and his friend were talking that he had done it again. Like, what do you want me to do? Just throw it out? But what I thought was really interesting is him telling the doctor, I don't have an addictive personality. And the truth is, he does. We've seen that. We've seen that last season when Donna is talking about we can't do this again. When Gordon was getting, obsessed to work with Joe to take the PC and figure out the code. Him being obsessed with figuring out what's wrong with the game and why that he's shooting a millisecond faster, but it isn't coming. him even being so focused that he can't even stop to go get his kids because he's got to get this. I thought the thing was, he is very much an addictive personality and obsessive. And so I thought the cocaine was even, on the second watch, we're in the end when he throws it away. I think the other point is, what I thought the storyline was about is that how, he's going to take something and keep pushing it, and pushing it. And that may not be a good thing. Often our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. And this dedication and the idea of, being on a one-track mind can also be very destructive.
Yeah, and that's all the Gordon character is. I mean, he kind of gets on those focus things, and he's no stopping him. He's just digging in and being just ultra obsessed. So yeah, that's a lot of what we saw in season 1, and it's continuing.
By the way, I figure everyone had to laugh when he goes, "Look, a second phone line. I'm talking to you all at the same time. I'm online." And, that brings back many memories, right?
Yeah.
It does. It definitely does.
Yes.
So what do you guys think about the programmers picking on John Bosworth? The gag with the license plate and then reading his letter.
I didn't get the gag with the license plate. Was confused about that.
So a lot of times in prison, their job is pressing license plates.
Okay, I got it.
And then the soap is the whole don't bend over for the soap in prison.
Okay.
All right. You want to go first, Matt?
I feel sorry for John because he was the scapegoat for last season. He got blamed for everything, even though it wasn't his fault. And that was all because of Joe. So I'm really upset that, I can believe it that it would happen. I believe that it would happen because these are little punk kids. They were basically bringing in their old boss to be their new boss, and nobody knows what to do with them. So they're just picking on them to tell them that this is our place, you're not welcome here.
Yeah.
And I really hope that John gets some redemption this season.
Yeah, I already have a problem with the programmers. I think, and I'm going to sound like, a boss, but I think they have no discipline. I think that we kind of talked about this in the last episode, Matt, that I believe most employees want structure. And even though they say they don't, I think that most people are more productive with at least some structure. And I'm not talking about a sweatshop of a contact center, but guidelines and rules and things help you to be more productive and help you to be a better employee. And these guys are just out of control. And I can't think they're doing their best work. I think I get the feeling they're lazy. And they go through, close enough is good enough. And so I was a little disappointed that John didn't come in with a little more force and a little more, kind of authority. But you can tell by the end when he talks to Cameron, he's just not ready yet. And even though she wants him to be, I thought that was a nice scene. And in our recaps of the first half of the season, and yes, we understand that we didn't get the second half. We're working on it. We're going to try to find time to do that. He went from being the bad guy to someone I really liked. And I liked him in this episode a lot and felt for him. And I really do think they went past the line. I think it was unnecessary, and once again makes me dislike them even more than I did.
And that's my conflict, because we have the luxury of being told the story and being able to see what's going on with the John Bosworth character and knowing what he's gone through and what he's done for the company that he was a part of, and helping with the giant, and then taking the being the scapegoat. So we have that luxury, and I don't and being young punks, like where Matt was saying, those guys probably don't understand the breadth of everything that this guy has gone through for them. And so because we had that luxury, of course we've got more sympathy for him. And I guess that's part of my conflict, is that I don't want to see these people picking on him. I want them to kind of acknowledge everything that he's kind of been through for them. And it was great to see Cameron come to the rescue.
Yeah, it was. And I understand Donna's point about, she is the voice, right? Saying, we're burning through money too much. I think we need to be careful. But it was, I was glad that Cameron kind of took him on and tried to help him, figure out what he needs to do. And I think good for John. It looks like, I hope we're going to follow him a little bit more this season and kind of see his journey.
I do have to say, though, the favorite line I had from Cameron on this episode was, "Are you going to give us the money or not?"
Yes. That. Well, I love the fact that she's in her she's got her backpack and she's dressed like she's been up all night, and there's Donna, she, dressed appropriately. And they both are going, was I supposed to dress up? What was I supposed to dress down? And it's like,
right.
You would have thought you would have had a discussion beforehand, saying, and I thought it was a great meeting with the money guy. Like, yeah, my nephew liked it, but then he got bored. Well, if your nephew understood programming, let's insult the guy's family, right? That's a good way to get money.
You just see Donna cringing on that, too.
Yeah, you really could.
My favorite part of that whole scene was when they started questioning about them being females. That just incensed me to no end. But that's what happens.
It really is, and it was, and sad to say, in 2012, because that was the last time I worked with this director who shall remain nameless. But he was firmly convinced that because someone could get pregnant, we shouldn't give them a role. As a leadership role. And I'm like, really? I mean, you said this out loud? So, and so especially back then, right? It's just crazy.
Yep.
I think sometimes, and this is a criticism I'm going to have of the show, is they get too much in love with their technobabble, and they want to talk about it too much. And, when they're talking about the, what this guy did with the modem and how he made the graphics better. And, I am not very technical, I hear blah, 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 faster, blah, 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 more people, blah, 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 blah.
My main problem with that whole thing is they didn't have a tank battle game back then. They didn't have real-time battle. It was all turn-based stuff. So it was all checkers and chess and card games. There was no tank battle back then, as far as I know.
Well, I mean, this is probably just, them taking some creative liberties and trying to find like something that might work as a simple graphic.
I think they just had to, I guess, attract more viewers. More viewers would be more associated with a tank battle than trying to watch somebody play checkers.
Right.
And
right.
I did like the thought about, well, Atari does it better, so which was really nice, right?
Yeah, because they don't have to go over a phone line and try to play it in real time, which is impossible back then.
Yeah.
That was my main grievance with the episode. Other than that, I was fine.
But your point, Jesse, about the technobabble, me being a IT person for life, it's probably second nature. So when they go over to that, talking that way, I'm naturally going over and understanding the acronyms and so I don't catch it. I don't catch that problem, but I could see how it would be a problem if you didn't know, like when they're talking about like the PBX or
Yeah.
the how many different connections they would be able to get on a single modem connection and things like that. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's cool for back then. But I could see how that would be kind of
that was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, the idea of you could have more people on with, less hardware or something. I understood that this, hacker had come up with something good. I didn't understand exactly what it was, and from my perspective, it's okay that I don't understand. I just know that he did something that's really good that makes them want to have him, right?
Right.
Okay. Good.
So his character is Tom Rinden, played by Mark
Okay.
O'Brien. So do we see a connection with him being like a technical equal for Cameron?
Oh, it was like blatantly set up future love interest coming down the road. It couldn't even make it more blatant if they tried.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think that was kind of cool that they are. I like it when there's someone pushing our main characters who's as talented as they are, and so I think that's been a nice turn, and we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. So we get everybody's paired up now. We got Joe with Sarah. We got Tom that's going to be with Cameron, and then of course Gordon. It's of course with Donna. So
Yeah.
so
Okay,
at
good.
least everybody's coupled except for maybe John.
Mhm.
So we'll have to find
Yeah.
somebody for him.
And I assume his wife, right? He talked about his wife dumped him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sad.
That was in the first season.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah,
he
I
was
think
sleeping in the office.
Right. Yes. So that wasn't necessarily because, thank you, I didn't remember that. So it isn't because he was, because he went to jail. It's because of other things.
Yeah, I think said something about him being a workaholic or some nonsense like that. Some cliche
Absolutely.
nonsense.
Okay. All right. Very nice.
Can't remember. Have to go back and watch.
Yeah. Okay.
Now the whole thing with the tank battle though, I thought that was absolutely awesome in the episode. As far as being able to diagnose what's lagging and then being able to go in and report it to the programmers, and then they try to fix it, but then they make it worse. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just synonymous with IT.
Well, and I do think that it's
Well, they
there.
didn't make it worse. The hacker had hacked into
Yeah.
the system and
Okay.
stolen all their bandwidth.
Yeah, but to Gordon's perspective,
Yeah,
is
Gordon's
because
perspective.
Gordon's perspective, I reported this bug, and these guys are supposed to be the brains in fixing it. They made it worse.
Yep.
Yeah, and not to jump on them, but I will. Right, that says they just are sloppy. Now, in this case, it wasn't them, but at first that was my thought. Like, okay, yeah, of course they are, because they're just half-assing everything.
And my other problem was that they were testing out the game in the same facility as the server, so it was just stupid. It would be an instantaneous. There would be no lag, but they're experiencing lag in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It just drove me nuts about that stupid tank battle, but I understand how they went with it.
I understand too. That's funny. I have had things like that that's bothering me. I will tell you. There have been things where it's like
Didn't happen back then.
I can't let it go.
Come on.
Mhm.
But we're all used to, playing these games on, Halo or Call of Duty with 20 people online shooting things.
Mhm.
Everybody's moving around at once, so But nobody understands that back then you didn't have that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So somehow they had to make it so everybody can relate to it, but not scare them too far off.
Okay, good. Is there anything we didn't cover?
Well, we got to bring up that Gordon's buying him pizza for a month.
Yes, I thought that was that was pretty funny. Like, not a word, because they're so like, oh, we're gonna tell your wife, and he's like, okay, and soda, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was soda. But
Yeah.
But I forgot what his line was, but it was something around the lines of, I could deal with my wife, but I don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. So very funny. Very cool.
And then the only other thing was kind of the sad story by Cameron, or are we calling her Catherine now, at the end of the episode, where she's talking about her letter, to her dad in Vietnam.
Yeah, that was really a sweet story, and you had not seen John acting as a father figure for her at all. So that was unexpected, and it kind of explains a little bit why this letter thing had meant so much, right?
Right.
That's not true either, because they did have a father-daughter moment in the first season after she stumbles in on him because she's sleeping in the office, and then she stumbles in on him and he's sleeping in the office.
Okay.
So they did have a moment before, and that's why I think they're so close now.
Okay.
So kind of kindred souls.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gotcha.
Okay, good. All right.
Perspective.
Yes. That's what he does. Brings it every episode. That's the man. Anything else we need to cover, guys?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
All right, so yes or no, is Gordon going to get more Coke, or has he kicked the habit when he threw away the stuff in the trash can?
He has kicked the habit, provided he can keep himself actively busy with something and not just taking care of the kids and saying he's going to learn to cook when he's not going to learn to cook.
Okay.
So provided he's busy with something that challenges him mentally, then I'd say yes, he's kicked the habit.
Okay, I agree. I think that's a fair assessment.
I'm sure it's going to come back.
Okay.
I think it was too easy to write it off in one episode.
But yeah, you're right. It's a drama, so of course it's going to come back. But maybe not while he's busy trying to work on fixing Mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's not officially, hired to fix Mutiny, but he's going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it's time for our ratings, right? So, Dave, you want to explain our rating service system again?
All right, so we're grading on a 1 to 3 scale. The lower score would be a 1, which is a byte. Our next grade up, which is level 2, would be kilobyte. Our next level up would be a megabyte. If all three of us agree that it's a megabyte episode, then this episode graduates to a gigabyte.
All right. So I'll start. I'm going to give it a kilobyte. I think it was a solid episode. I think we're still doing a little bit of housekeeping, setting up the pieces, but a solid second episode.
What do you think, Matt?
I'm going to give it a kilobyte too, even though it was a safe episode. Not a lot of surprises in it, but overall a decent hour of television.
So I know I ripped on it early, but I'm kilobyte. Just because it's obviously Halt and Catch Fire. It's got just great characters. It's got great writing. I'm just picking on the nuances that bug me, like I don't know what to do with the Joe character yet. Do I trust him? Do I not trust him? Unfortunately, I think that's going to be a theme throughout our show. But, just the nuances with, them hiring everybody and their cousin and not having money to buy proper hardware. So
Yeah.
things like that just kind of
Exactly.
stick out in my brain.
And I think he's got to earn your trust.
Yeah.
I mean, I respect that. So
I
good
don't.
job. You don't?
No, we know
Wow.
we know it's coming back. We know there's
Oh.
something cooking.
Hmm.
That's why he sent the little waffle iron to him. He's still scheming. He can't let it go. He's just always going to be scheming.
All right.
Yeah, he's the strategist, he's the visionary. He's thinking he's 4 or 5 moves ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and which is what we like about him. But we
So-
also hate.
Yes, we do. So, Dave, how can our listeners find you on that crazy thing called the internet?
Well, there's the Facebook page, which is 80s Reboot. And then on Twitter, there's 80s Reboot. And we're also on Tumblr, 80s Reboot. So everything is the same.
All right. Matt?
I'm on Twitter at MattMcLean73.
Okay. And I am at JWJ170104. We thank you for listening. Please send us your thoughts, your ratings, and tell us if you think Joe has turned in a new leaf, or is he just playing the long con?
I shot first.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Well, that's if our modems register it correctly.
Yeah.
So, unless anyone else has anything else, I think it's time to hit Control-Alt-Delete.
I love that ending, Jesse.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next week.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at SouthgateMediaGroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.